Welcome to our video on how to create account reports in Salesforce. My name is Steve, and in the next few minutes you will learn how to create reports in Salesforce that take advantage of this super easy to use and powerful tool. It's my opinion that every user will benefit by knowing how to get what they want out of Salesforce using reports. In the description I've included links to our reports and dashboards playlist where you can explore every video that we've made about reports. I've also included a really helpful video about optimizing Salesforce and increasing results. Check those out when you can. Now let's get into it. Okay, well, we're going to start this video on how to create an account report by going to the Reports tab. And from within the Reports tab, we're going to go ahead and click New Report. And so I'll go ahead and do that. And the first thing you'll be asked for is what type of report you want to use. And so in this example, what I normally recommend is, since we're creating an account report, is simply type in accounts, and then it will tell you which options you have or which reports you want. So you'll notice it allows me to use recently used reports, or if I go to all and I type in account, then I'll see a list of all of the different types of reports that include accounts. So in this example, I'm simply going to use accounts. And what I'll show in a moment is when you're in the report, what you're really selecting here is the data that you can filter on or display in the report. And so an easy way of thinking about this choice is simply choosing the data that you want to display and want to be able to filter on. But don't choose too much. I used to get in the habit of selecting contacts and accounts because I just wanted all of it, and then I would filter for what I wanted. And I realized over time that actually made the reporting more complicated. So in this example, I'm simply going to choose accounts. And so at this point, I'll go ahead and select Start Report, and it takes me into the report setting. Now, at this point, a couple of things I want to just convey about how this is organized. The first thing you'll see here is on the left-hand side, you have this panel that includes filters, outlines, and fields. And I'm going to go through this in more detail, but this is really the majority of what you're setting up in the report, is how you configure your filters, your outline, and your fields. Then you have your display area. This is the information that you're displaying in the report. And when you're using basic reports, it's a good idea to change this option to update preview automatically. What this means is when you make simple changes to the report, they will be reflected immediately. However, if you're using large data sets, so in this example, maybe I've got 100 or 200 accounts in this database that I'm working on, not a big deal to use update preview automatically. But if I had 1 million accounts, I would want this to not update automatically. I'd want to leave that in a preview mode, which means I can control when I refresh it. But for this example, we'll go ahead and do the update automatically. Okay, so on the left-hand side, I want to start usually with my filters. So filters are controlling what you see in the report. Now, when you're not sure of what you're doing, one good technique is to make the filters really broad, and then you can narrow them down as you move forward. So in this example, I'm going to change the account ownership to all accounts, because I'm not really sure what I'm going to get, so I'm going to make it as broad as possible, so I'll apply that. And I'm also going to remove this create date, which is limiting what I'm seeing. All right, so by limiting this, or I shouldn't say deleting it, I'm going to go ahead and select it, set it to all time. So my create date is all time, and my accounts are all accounts. So now you can see I have this very broad, unfiltered report effectively that's showing me everything. Now from here, I can choose to narrow it down. So let's say I want to narrow this down to records created in the last fiscal year. So I'll go ahead and apply that just to narrow it down a little bit. And I'll go ahead and let me go ahead and just run that real quick just so we can see whether we see. Okay, so we've got 43 accounts. All right, so I'm going to go back now to edit, and I wanted to, the reason I ran it was I wasn't really seeing a huge difference here in my display, and it's only showing a limited number of records to control the speed. So if I really wanted to see my limit, I'd want to do that. Now, while I'm in the filter section, there's other things that I can filter on. So if I want to add a filter, I can simply click into this filter field, And now I can begin to search on different things. So let's say I wanted to search on account owner. I could select that field and I could type in, let's say, Steve Snap, for example. Or I filter on other fields. Maybe I want account name starts with A, for example. I could go ahead and do that. So those are different options that I can apply that will limit my filters or limit my dashboard or limit my report. Okay, so I've got these different filters available to me, and I can continue to filter and add and limit the filters as much as I need to. Next on this left-hand side is the outline. And the two things you see on the outline are the group rows and columns. So columns really allow you to control the columns that you're displaying over here. Now, since this is an account report, I don't really think last activity is a good example here. So I'm going to remove this. I'm also going to, I'll leave billing state and type. I'll take last modified out. So if I wanted to add other fields, let's say I wanted to add phone, for example, I could just go ahead and click that. Or if I wanted to add website, I can go ahead and do that. And you'll see as I do that, it adds these elements to the, let me just type in city, see what we get. I'll try billing city. So I'll just keep adding these fields to the column, display it as I choose the different things I want to see. Now, I don't really like the filter starting with A, so I'm going to go ahead and back over to the filter section and remove that. And now I'll start to see more of this data. So at this point, what I'm seeing here is essentially a very basic set of filters, and I've got a couple of fields outlined in my display, but I've done no grouping. And so in this example now, I want to start to explore different fields that I might group on. So in this example, I'm looking over here at my data, and I'm seeing that the type field has some diversity in terms of the companies that are here. So I'm going to jump over here and go type, and I'm going to go ahead and select that. Now what you'll notice is that this grouping gets added on the left-hand side, and so now it's subtotaling all the accounts based on the type that I selected. And so this grouping is then what opens the door to you to all kinds of charting and dashboarding. And so the grouping concept is very, very valuable. When I don't have it grouped, we have just a very basic, it's basically a list. There's nothing really magic happening, but once you start to add in a group, then you can start to do other things with it. So at this point, I've now grouped on row, which allows me to subtotal by type. And if I wanted to subtotal by column, I could also do that. In the old Salesforce world, it's what we call a matrix report. And so you could add other fields, for example, that would allow you to then see, these are all the construction managers, and these are who they're owned by, for example. And so if there were multiple owners, you'd see Steve Snap and Matt and Joe and Susan, etc., across the top here. So this is what in Salesforce Classic was often called a matrix report. In this example, I don't necessarily want to do much with this, so I'm going to go ahead and remove the column grouping, but it's useful for you to understand the relationship between the grouping and the column grouping. Let's say I wanted to add owner here under grouping, like I was just talking about. Then it would do the same thing that we were just showing, but now it would show it horizontally versus vertically, if that makes sense. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and remove that account ownership grouping, but again, it's super useful for you to see that. Now, the next thing on the list is off to the left-hand side. You have this thing called fields. And fields is just useful ways. Sometimes if you want to add fields and you want to look at a list, then you can open up that fields sidebar and you can scroll through all of the objects or all of the sections related to the account object. Now, when we selected account a moment ago, when we did report type, we were basically selecting what options are available here. If I were to minimize all these are all the different sections of the account that are available to me. And if I did contacts and accounts, I would see account options as well as contact options. But everything else is the same. So the filters, the outlines, just the fields change. And now I could group, let's say, on contacts or accounts. But I'm going to show most of that in the contact report video that's available under the reports and dashboards playlist. Okay, So in this example, we've now selected the fields that we want to display, and we've selected the fields that we want to filter on, and we've also decided on our grouping. So in this example, I'm going to go ahead and select Save. I'll give this a report name. When I put in the report name and I tab to the unique name, Salesforce automatically gives it a unique name. So if I have multiple reports with I'll call it the report name, I can have multiple reports with the name New Account Reports, but behind the scenes at the database level, Salesforce is going to increment between those. Then I can put in a description, and then I can decide where I want this to be saved. Now the folder controls who can see it. So if I leave it private, only I can see it. And private's usually a great place to start when you're working with a report, because you're not sure who, you don't necessarily want to put it in a public place and have everybody see it. But eventually, if it's a report that you're going to share with other people or you're going to build a dashboard on it, you'll eventually want to share that report in a location that other people can see. So you can see here I have this public report section. I can select that, create folders, etc. In this case, I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to leave it in private folders so I don't have to select that. And I'll go ahead and select Save. So now I have a report. I can run this report, and when I run it, it takes me out of edit mode and it actually displays the report. So in this example now I can run this report. If I wanted to edit it, I could certainly go back into edit. I can also export the report, etc. So over on the right hand side, there's several options that are available to you. You can make a copy of this report, save as. You can subscribe to this report, which means you can essentially have it emailed to you on some schedule. You can export the report. You could obviously delete it, and then you could add this to either a campaign or a dashboard. So if you built a perfect report, you now want to add it to a company dashboard, you could do that. Okay, now in this example, I want to add a chart. Now, either if I'm in edit mode or here, I can select add chart. So I'm going to go back to edit mode, which is where I like to do that. And from this, I can go ahead and add a chart. And so in this example, it will default to what we call the horizontal bar chart. And over right here on the settings button for the chart, you can change what report you're using or what chart you're using. So in this example, I'm using a horizontal bar chart. And just to go back here to show you what it sees, it's showing me the number of records in a chart that are organized by type. So you can see, what I was seeing here. I see 6 construction managers. I see 4 customers. I see 1 developer, etc. I'm seeing all of those here in chart format. If I wanted to make this a vertical chart, I could do that. In the chart settings, they call it column. I can't use stacked, bar, or column because I only have one grouping. So if I were to go back over to my chart and let's say I want to do owner like I was showing you earlier, when I do that and I add that to the chart, when I come back into chart settings, I'll now have the ability to do a stacked chart or a stacked column. And so again, it just gives me more capabilities. Underneath the chart settings, I have all the ability to control how I'm organizing my data. So I can set the x-axis, the y-axis, etc. And so again, this is where I can control all of that. So I won't go through all of these components. We do have a video that goes into all of these dashboard components or all these chart components in detail. So I won't do that here. I'll go back and select bar chart. I'll leave it the way I started, but I wanted you to know that it's here. Now, one thing that's useful about a report is the underlying tool that you use when you build a dashboard. And so one option is you can build a chart here and then push that chart into a dashboard, or you can turn the chart off and you can use the charting option in the dashboard. If you're building this report to put in a dashboard, it's my opinion that you don't add a chart. Or if you do, you're just kind of playing with it, but you use the chart settings in the dashboard. And in the playlist, Reports and Dashboards, we have a video about creating dashboards. And I say that same thing in that video, which is, generally speaking, I don't recommend using the report chart in your dashboard. I recommend using the dashboard charts that are configured to run on that report. And the reason for that is if you look at the chart settings here, there's not a lot of options, but the chart settings on the dashboard are very, very useful. So I'll just give you a quick glimpse of that, just so you know what I'm saying here. So let me just pop in here to dashboard real quick, and I'll just edit this quick. So in this particular chart in a dashboard, I have a lot more options on how I can configure the chart. So I recommend using the dashboard charts rather than report charts if you're going to be dashboarding on this. If you're simply just using this, you want to run something quick, you want to look at some data, then by all means use the report chart. Okay, so I've added the chart. If I want to hide that chart, I can toggle it away here. So I have the option to turn it on, turn it off. If I want to remove the chart permanently, I can go back into edit, and then I can remove the chart from my dashboard by deselecting that option. That way, when I run it again, I won't by default have a chart. So if I want to remove the chart permanently from the report, I do that by going into edit, and I select the settings, and I remove the chart from within the settings. That allows me to then save it and then run it, and I won't see the chart unless I go ahead and add chart again. Finally, one other useful feature about reporting is once you have the report built, you can export the data. And so in this example, I'll select export. And you have two choices here. You can either select formatted report or details only. If I'm going to be working on this data in any way in Excel, I like to use details. But if I'm sharing this with someone, I usually use formatted report. And so this will output the data to a CSV or to some kind of Excel format. And so in this example, I can choose from that. So you notice here when I use formatted report, it doesn't give me the option of Excel. But when I do details only, it allows me to do CSV or some other Excel format. So again, if you're generally using this in some kind of analytic, or you want to do something with the data, generally you want to use details only. And then when I hit export, you'll watch it. It'll happen very quickly. It'll go into my downloads. And so you'll see it drop into my downloads, and there's that file there. And if I open it up in Excel, you can go ahead and see that format there. So it still has some formatting, but it's the raw data. Okay, so now when I go into the reports menu, I'll see my new account report. I also can see it by accessing private reports. You'll see it there as well. And I could also type in, if I come into all reports and I type in new account report, you'll see it there as well. Okay, great. Please let me know in the comments if you have any questions. Thank you for watching this video. On the screen and in the description, I've included links to our reports and dashboards playlist. And I've also included a 5-minute video that will share 3 strategies that we use to increase results and reduce Salesforce license costs through a Salesforce program called OSP. Please spend a few more moments of your precious time with us, and we will help you take Salesforce to a whole new level in your company. Finally, please like and subscribe. We'll see you soon. Thank you.